In 2005, two brothers set off on a road trip that would eventually save the world and change television. For 15 seasons and 327 episodes, Supernatural took audiences on a wild ride of family, fate, and faith, with a rocking soundtrack and a seriously cool car.
But that was then, and this is now. And while the show might have ended, we're not quite done with the journey. And that's why we're watching it all over again, diving deep into every episode of Supernatural with the fine folks who made it. And we're taking you along for the ride.
I'm Rob Benedict. I played Chuck Shirley, a.k.a. God. And yes, that's a bit of a spoiler, but spoilers are going to be fair game here.
And I'm Richard Spade Jr., and I played the Trickster, also known as the Archangel Gabriel. We'll be talking about the entire series, so don't say we didn't warn you.
So buckle up and settle in.
This is Supernatural, then and now.
Hey, it's Rob Benedict.
And Richard Spate.
And today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 13.
Unlucky 13.
And it's entitled...
Route 666.
Or is it Route 666?
Or is it Route 666?
We'll try to figure out the answer to that at the end of this podcast. But in the meantime, let's get into what happens.
Yeah, what does happen?
All right, so Dean gets a phone call from his past girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
A very foxy Cassie Robinson.
Wow.
That's her character's name.
Double wow.
She's foxy.
I got a double wow from me.
She's foxy.
Nice. You sound like you're 104. Go on.
So her father was chased off the road and killed by a mysterious truck. Soon, another man dies, and Sam and Dean realize that all these weird accidents are occurring on the same road, and black men seem to be the targets.
Oh, wow.
After the mayor is killed...
Obviously, also an African-American
Actually,
gentleman?
no, the mayor is white.
Oh.
We don't know yet what the link is, but we find out soon enough. So after the mayor is killed, the boys and Cassie discover that all the men had a connection to the Dorian family, a wealthy white family from the town's past. Cassie's mother shares a very emotional story.
Very.
About how Cyrus Dorian, a known racist, was killed when Cyrus was attacking Cassie's father years ago. Her father and friends disposed of Cyrus' body and truck in the swamp and covered everything up.
They did that not because they're bad people, but because back in the day, a lot of racist people in that town. They wouldn't be all excited about an African-American fellow attacking a white guy, even if it was to save his own life.
Exactly. And this Cyrus Dorian was not a good dude.
No, he's a bad guy. Real bad guy.
Yeah.
Racist.
He burned a church with children in it.
Yeah, I know. Supreme bad guy.
Supreme bad guy. So they realize that they must put the remains that are still in the truck to rest in order to stop this evil truck. So the boys do their thing. They bring down the racist ghost truck. Oh, and also Dean sleeps with Cassie in what is possibly maybe a first and only, but the longest making love scene I've ever seen in a Supernatural.
Oh, in Supernatural?
Or any show.
Yeah, dude, it was long.
Long, hot, and heavy.
It just kept going, and I was sitting there going, boy, Rob's going to have a field day with this. Because you are the podcast perv.
I mean, it was, look, first of all, she was nice to look at.
Yeah, you said foxy earlier, Grandpa.
And I just think that she was a very...
and you think she's foxy. Oh, you can't circle off of her. Like, she was foxy, and also she was very foxy. It wasn't her by herself.
I have notes for the episode.
You made notes about this?
Yeah, the episode. Anyway, and one of my notes is, she is foxy.
She is foxy. That's one of your notes. And then in all caps, full-blown sex scene.
Yeah, I mean...
And then Dean is hairless.
Dean's he's a hairless, perfect Ken doll body. Hairless.
I think people might take issue with the Ken doll part.
Why?
It means he has no schwanz.
Oh, jeez. You're always thinking schwanz.
Well, you said hairless. I say schwanz. Hairless.
Schwanz.
All right.
Anyway, so, yeah. So, what do you think, Rich? What'd you think of this episode?
Man, I don't want to be the guy who, I didn't love it. I got to be honest. I did not love it.
We've loved every episode up until now.
I know, and I feel like we give every episode a full beard. I'm not giving this one a full beard.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a Van Dyke.
Okay.
Because
Remind me what a Van Dyke is.
A Van Dyke is the mustache and the goatee together.
Okay, so that's...
Some facial hair, but no sideburns,
okay.
no cheek growth, just a Van Dyke. And I'm only giving it a Van Dyke because I didn't love the episode, but Jared and Jensen make everything entertaining. They're still so good and such engaging characters on the page. It's not like I didn't like it. It just wasn't my favorite.
Sure. It's hard to get your mind around a killer truck.
Okay, here's my big beef with it, and I'm dead serious. Is it the mayor who'd being chased down the road?
Yeah.
Why didn't he take a right into the trees? Like, it bugged me that he would just run down the road, and then the truck can run over him. Yeah. There's a tree line.
Right.
Take a right. Yeah. Get off the road.
There's also the scene where Cassie's inside her house and the truck is outside going, and she closes all the shades, and then she runs to the other side of the house, and before she gets there, the truck's now there. Going,
Somehow that also wasn't all that scary, because I thought the odds of that truck making that porch with any sort of velocity and getting in that house, she could still just go up the stairs or out the door. Also, she says, I don't know who's driving the truck. Well, you were closing all the windows. You didn't look.
Yeah.
She said, it seems like nobody was driving it. I'm like, well, if you don't look.
No, I noticed that too. I'm going to go ahead and give it a handlebar mustache.
Okay, you got a handlebar mustache, which is even less than I gave it, and I gave it a Van Dyke. That's not a great rating.
I think your Van Dyke I think you overshot the metaphor.
What? It's mustache and goatee.
That's still a lot of beard. In some circles, that's a beard.
No, it's not, because the beard has to connect. Oh, please.
Anyway, we digress.
I give your understanding of facial hair a soul patch.
Okay. I gave it the handlebar because the handlebar has a lot of flair, and I think this episode has a lot of flair.
It was the Raleigh fingers of episodes.
Exactly. It's a full-on Pulp Fiction episode of Supernatural. If you think about the season 1 being a bunch of short Pulp Fiction books, that this fits right in there, Killer truck. Wow. Where did I lose you? I lost you at handlebar?
Pulp Fiction. You lost me at handlebar.
Man, you got a short attention span. So I have a note on our notes here, and it says, Rob, is Missouri really like that? Have I ever been to Cape Girardeau? We used to play Cape Girardeau in school, but I don't think I've been to Cape Girardeau. But yeah, it's a well-known Missouri town. I mean, Missouri has a racist past, so that part of it is accurate. But no, I can't say that a lot of people drive trucks. So I guess, Missouri is kind of like that.
Haunted killer trucks?
Haunted killer trucks.
I will say this on the plus side.
Yeah, Cassie.
And the fact that Jensen Dean had a cool backstory of having been in love once and opened himself up and sort of been shot down. She took off on him.
Yeah, that was a fun. And it's a good point, because we've seen a lot of Sam's ex. We've seen the boys flirting. We haven't seen Dean's
open up his heart to somebody.
And have Sam be the guy who's like, Sam was like a little kid in this episode in terms of Dean's like, oh, Dean, I saw you look at it. You guys gave you a look. Like, get over yourself. You guys love each other.
Like a girl.
Yeah, totally.
Very brothers.
Can I consult my notes? What else I thought while they're watching it?
Yeah, who else is hairless?
I love the bro relationship tension. I love that there's always tension with these guys.
You mean what we're just talking about, or you mean like the sort of their argument about what to do with this? The situation.
They don't just go, these are brothers. They're brothers that are complicated relationship. Tension.
Yeah, Sam brings up that point of like Jessica, the girl we see get killed in the pilot, who's clearly very close to him. He never gave her the family backstory.
Right.
And here Dean is yapping his face off to the first girl he falls in love with. Really pissed Sam off.
Right.
That showed in the episode.
Yeah. My other thoughts about it were, I love the Vancouver weather. There's like, all of a sudden it's snowing in the scene.
It was like literally hailing, snowing, and downpouring. Yeah. And they're like, hell of a summer here in Missouri.
Yeah. And it doesn't snow that much in Missouri, so I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
And there are there are other episodes we've watched that we'll talk about later where you see it's raining. And then the other thing is that the woman in the monologue the mom does, she really nails it.
She's great.
Goes for it.
Yeah, man, she's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a 4-page monologue.
Yeah.
Do you also notice, and this is also something I didn't love, is they just kept sometimes arbitrarily cutting to shots of the truck.
Yeah.
They're like, oh man, there was a truck one time, and then show a truck.
It was the truck from the past. It was like, boy, in the 60s, he drove this truck, and they just...
truck.
Well, more good news.
What?
We're talking to Jay Gruska today.
And we're saying Jay Gruska correctly because we didn't say it correctly when we interview him. You will hear that in a minute.
Yeah.
But Jay Gruska, one of the original composers on the show, along with Chris Lennertz, who we've already had on the show. But what a lengthy resume this man has. 21 Jump Street.
Yeah, 30-something.
Lois and Clark.
Beverly Hills 90210.
The original one, by the way.
Yeah.
And Charmed. Yeah. 8 seasons of Charmed.
And not just TV. He did films. He did Commando, Adventures in Babysitting.
Little Shop of Horrors, and a movie that I love Cocoon.
Yeah, an amazing soundtrack.
Right.
And he's also a songwriter. He's written or co-written songs for Amy Grant, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Chicago,
Robert Palmer,
the Pointer Sisters,
and of course, Mr. Tearaway Pants himself, Sean Cassidy.
Is that the Cassidy you know?
Yeah.
All right, well, without further ado.
Here he is, Mr. Jay Gruska.
So we've got with us today, joining us on the podcast. Very excited.
Legend.
Jay Gruska is here.
Jay Gruska is right there.
Hi, Jay.
Can I do a quick correction?
Yes.
That U.S. in the middle of my name is pronounced us.
Gruska.
Gruska.
Yeah. Dude, I've been saying it wrong for a long time.
You know what? I've heard it wrong for my entire life, so I just occasionally... It's been just so way off for forever.
I'm so glad you said something, though, because I'm a guy, I don't think anybody probably mispronounces Benedict, but Spate gets mangled.
Oh.
I mean, mangled. Sprite,
absolutely.
Spate. People wouldn't R in it all the time. Sprite.
Yes.
There's no R in it.
Right. Yeah, I get Benedict a lot.
Really?
Not as a joke. People say Benedict.
Yeah.
But Jay, I feel bad because, when we had cinematographer...
Serge Ladouceur?
Yes. I f***ed up Ladouceur.
Oh.
But that's hard, right? But Jay Gruska is what I thought your name was all this time. It's Jay Gruska.
Jay Gruska.
Yeah, it's Jay Gruska, but you know what? It was probably Gruska in, old country Poland 100 years ago.
Right.
Maybe Grushka would probably be more accurate. But yeah,
we'll never make that mistake again.
No, and I think it's important for this podcast that people now know the real story behind
Jay Gruska,
the composer's name.
It's all good.
And unlike when we screwed up Serge's name, we probably won't get an angry email from Emmanuel Macron, who is offended by our Serge Ladouceur. Jay, dude, you have a long and storied history with Bob Singer. Probably a questionable history. But what I want to know before we dive into that relationship is Supernatural. How, when, where, how did you get involved? Give us your origin story.
Right. Well, as you guys, I'm sure know, Kripke and Chris Lennertz were college buddies. And Chris got hired, as he should have been, not only for his prodigious talent, but because they were buddies, and it's a beautiful loyalty story there. Don't get me started on both those guys. I could easily do the hour on them, and my respect and love for them both. But he got hired to do the pilot, and then I think because Eric was a newbie in the television world, he sort of was assigned a showrunner in Bob Singer, who's experience was vast. And, Bob knew that Chris had been hired to do the pilot. And there was, I guess there was a moment where Bob said, well, I have my guy. And, and Eric said, I have my guy. And the way that I always assumed it, and of course, Chris did the pilot, and the way that I assumed it at the beginning was that they were going to see which felt better and the other one was going to possibly be let go. And I have a reasonable amount of confidence, but I kind of assumed that it was going to be me that was let go because of that pre-existing relationship. Right. And when I met Chris, in 30 seconds, I loved the guy. And then I was actually at the spotting session for the pilot because I had already been hired under this idea that he would do the pilot and I would do the very next episode. And then I think the unspoken part was, let's see who we like better. That's the way that I perceived it. And, much to certainly my joy, we each had our own voice in the thing and both got asked to continue. And more accurately, I got asked to continue. And that was the beginning of it. And, we talked, I mentioned the loyalty between, Eric and Chris. I've had the same thing with Bob Singer. He just called me on almost just about every show he's done since the first show I did with him was Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman.
Wow.
So, it's a rare thing, that sweet loyalty. And
yeah. And it's also a rare thing. I think we talked to Chris about this a little bit, but I think it's also a rare thing that there are two composers for a show. You see it a lot with DPs, but not usually with composers, right? Am I correct?
Completely correct. And then ironically for me, Supernatural was the second show in a row that I had alternated. I did all 8 seasons of Charmed and alternated on that. And I had never done that before. Every series I've done, I've done a lot of, 1-hour dramas in 3 decades. And that was the first one that I was asked to alternate, then going right into this. And I guess the scary part at first is how do you maintain a musical through line and a continuity and thematic connection and all that? But it happened to work in both the shows, and especially in Supernatural, especially those first few seasons of Supernatural, maybe really just the first season. Everything was such a one-off little movie on its own, Monster of the Week thing. It allowed a different voice to happen. And we had Chris and I had a few conversations just about general palette. I don't think we actually had that conversation in detail till we each had done a show or two and went, oh, here are the kind of ballpark parameters. And of course, in the end, after 15 seasons, why I loved working on this show so much, aside from the people, which is always the first thing, was the musical landscape. It was always different.
Right.
I mean, the boogeyman stuff was fairly consistent.
Right.
But everything from a Ry Coodery kind of vibe to a full orchestra the next week to, Scooby-Doo to one of Spate's directed shows where I was a Quentin Tarantino-esque kind of vibe. And,
which we will get to in about 14 years.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you bring us into this story then. Let's talk, that's a good segue into this specific script. So here you are, you're handed this script. What part of the process do you start thinking about? I mean, obviously you haven't seen shot footage. Are you already formulating a sound when you're looking at the printed word?
Well, I'll share with you what my philosophy has been, and I will always read a script when I'm asked to do it. But what really informs me, more than the movie that I will make in my head when I'm reading a script, is looking at an image, seeing the lighting, seeing the rhythm of the actor, seeing the vibe of the scene, the pace of the scene, the temp score, if it's there, how that might be correct or how that might be incorrect. And so in the whole 15-year run of Supernatural, I maybe read 3, maybe 4 scripts, because the rest of them was a rough cut, watching a rough cut, because, I always watched the rough cut. I watched every rough cut because, you have to walk into a spotting session having a sense of what the story is already and what the vibe is. But that's a long-winded way to say I much prefer in this medium seeing what I need to see and hearing what I need to hear, even if there's no temp score, just based on the rhythm of the actors and the way it's lit and what the underpinning story is. So I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, totally. Okay, guys, hold on. We're coming right back.
Hey, this is Richard Spate. You know what? It's 2024. It's a brand new year, and I bet you made some New Year's resolutions, and I bet one of them was to eat healthier. Well, you can get cranking on that resolution right now, my friend, with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue. I'm getting tired just talking about it. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you will have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart this resolution off right. Forget frantic lunch prep and rush dinner making. That stinks. Factor's 2-minute meals, yes, I said 2 minutes, are your secret weapon in the new year. You get to fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals all delivered right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that. And Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. So I know what you're asking. Rich, How do I tap into this Factor magic? You head to factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 and use code SPNTAN50 to get 50% off. That's a lot off. That's code SPNTAN50 at factormeals.com/SPNTAN50 for 50% off. Make that resolution happen now and make it happen at a discount. Fantastic food that's healthy and delicious and delivered right to my door. Now that is how you start the new year off right.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. And now back to the episode.
And you said something, so we like to educate our listeners while we're having these conversations.
Yeah.
Use the term temp score.
Yes.
A temp score. Explain to a non-cinemaphile what that is.
Basically, it's before a composer gets involved, and so sometimes before a composer's hired, it's music put into a show or a movie by the director and or producers to show what the direction might be musically. Sometimes it's spot on, sometimes it's not accurate, but either way, it will show. And, it's done for either test audiences or the network or anything, so that you're not just showing, 48 minutes of silence and dialogue. Sometimes composers think they didn't used to do it, that this is the advent of, I don't know, maybe this started happening more in the 90s. Before that, other than having a song in, there was not a lot of temp stuff done. There might have been some before that, but then it became a regular thing. And some composers have the bad luck. I mean, we've all been through it, a director and or producers having temp love. And it just shuts down the possibility for the composer to stretch in some unforeseen area that might be wonderful.
Right.
Because this is the sound we've fallen in love with,
Yeah. We call it demoitis in the band. It was like you make a demo and you kind of fall in love with the demo, but even though you need to re-record it.
Right there with you.
Yeah. So, sorry, I'm going to circle back to you and Chris for a second. Is there like a common file that you both pull from? Okay, this is a dramatic or foreboding scene. Were any of the pieces that you used co-produced or co-composed?
No, only I would say, I don't know, what were there? Maybe 3 or 4 episodes that we worked on together, but each wrote our own music.
Got it.
Because, like, for instance, the musical.
Right, of course, yeah.
Fan fiction.
Yeah.
Such a fun project. I did a couple songs. I think Chris had 1 song in it. I had 2. And then we co-wrote the underscore and things like that, where we would, we sat in a spotting session together. And maybe as we were spotting, Chris might say, "Oh, I'll take that one," in terms of dividing the show up. We did that on I think Time After Time. And Scooby Natural.
Sure.
Scooby Natural, which, so we actually have never written together, but we've worked on the same episodes together. Yeah. And, I can't speak for him, but I'm in Chris's fan club.
Oh, you're definitely in his fan club, buddy, in a big way.
Yeah.
How much, I know you came into this with being Bob Singer's guy, but Bob Singer directed only 50, which is a ton, but of a show that had 300 and something episodes. So you obviously worked with other directors. You worked with a lot of other directors. How hands-on are other directors, or is it really the showrunner dealing with you and Bob dealing with you? How does that relationship work?
Well, that's a good question. And first of all, I loved when I saw your name on a show I was going to do, Dick.
Likewise.
Honestly, I think we did either 3 or 4 together, and they were all a blast and unique. I still remember the air guitar solo you had.
Dude, that was great.
Dude, that was a lot of fun. I would say, as a generic statement, that in movies, you're dealing almost exclusively with the director. And in television, it more often falls into the producers or production team that is in the spotting session. Present company excluded, because you showed up to a couple of your spots, which I loved.
Right. But I'm not sure. I think those guys let me in, A, because I wanted to be there, but B, because I was, quote unquote, in the family, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Like maybe that's not an opportunity afforded every visiting director. I'm not sure.
You might be right. Because that's what I was trying to say as a sort of a general rule in television. The relationship at the spotting session where it is decided where music goes, the style of the music, what's the actual start, what's the out, all these things called cues. You know, a piece of music, I'll talk to our audience here, a piece of music in a TV show or in a movie, other than a song is a song. A song with lyrics and a melody and a band or a guitar or a piano, whatever it is. But if there's a singer on it with a lyric and a musical accompaniment, that's a song. But an instrumental piece of music in a movie or TV show is called a cue, C-U-E. So that relationship in television tends to be producers and the composer, much more so than the director and the composer. And there are exceptions to that too.
We specifically are talking about the episode called Route 666.
Or Route 666, depending on what part of the country you're from.
Gruska.
Yes. Tomato.
Tomato. So do you remember your first impression of this? It's a unique Monster of the Week episode, really. Killer car.
Dude.
It was. Listen, it evoked immediately, because I don't know if you guys remember Steven Spielberg's first movie, Duel.
Duel, yeah.
Duel.
It's very Duel.
So it was incredibly cool and incredibly scary with like, what? Seriously? I never see the driver and I'm terrified.
Yeah. Terrified, yeah.
So it evoked that. But, two things struck me. And the only reason I remembered is because I scanned it yesterday. I sort of went through it and went, oh, yeah, that. And oh, yeah, that. Right. Two things struck me. One was the social consciousness of Eugenie and Brad's script. I just thought it was cool to just deal with the race and racist historical nature of the underpinnings of that script. And I just thought that's kind of responsible and cool. And the second thing that occurred to me was, I'll probably be scoring sometimes when this truck is on. Here's the final score, not the musical score, but the score in the competition of truck versus music.
Right.
Truck won, music nothing. Because every time that truck was on, and I was, I didn't know how loud they would play it, but, I was writing detailed stuff. You don't really hear it. Yeah, truck won. But, that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Literally the nature of that beast. Now, not only was there a truck with no driver, Duel-esque in the show, there was also Supernatural's first, and might I say, really lengthy
sex scene.
Love-making sequence. Well, Rob calls it a sex scene. I call it a love-making sequence. And I'm curious, that was new to this show. How did you approach that? And how does that approach your, obviously that kind of scene requires a different deft handling of the music. So how did you approach it?
Well, the first way I approach it, because, Jensen Ackles is the handsomest man on the planet, is I didn't let my wife watch it. That's the first thing. But no, honestly, I don't think that I had score in that lovemaking scene. I think there was a song there. I don't remember exactly.
You know what? I think there is a song in that
there's
sequence.
A song in that. Yeah. So that's my answer to that, is that I didn't have to contend with that.
So, Jay, now you may be aware of this, you may not, but the bummer is Rob and I, for the most part, haven't seen a lot of early Supernatural, so we're watching a lot of this for the first time, and we're watching it on Netflix, which means we're not getting the original songs.
Oh, yes. Right.
So I don't know what song went in this love scene.
It might be in our notes here.
I remember thinking that the song that was in the love scene wasn't necessarily all that awesome.
It says the original broadcast featured great music from James Gang, Bad Company, and Blind Faith.
I guarantee you there was a badass song in that scene that wasn't there when I watched it.
You don't hear that on the Netflix versions.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and I think either Bob or Phil would certainly know, but for sure there was a contractual thing about something like
we
DVDs.
got into it with them.
DVDs.
Yeah, we got into that with them early on. I think McGee or somebody told us it was they cleared everything for everything, but quote unquote new media. Like they weren't thinking in terms of streaming. So streaming didn't get cleared.
There was not really such thing then. Netflix was, I just got this DVD delivered. For the youngsters out there, that's what Netflix used to be, was a DVD delivery. Yeah, it was DVD.
When Rob was going to Netflix and chill with somebody, it usually meant get a DVD and relax with somebody.
Heck yeah.
It
turns out it's She Brings Me Love by...
Brings Me Love.
She Brings Me Love by Bad Company.
Interesting.
During the lovemaking.
God,
it's not good.
Boy, our producer boys definitely found some cool shit.
They did.
Am I allowed to say cool.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you can say whatever.
Okay.
You say whatever, man. It's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so for the Monster of the Week's episodes in this first season, did you try to give different spirits, different ghosts, themes?
It's a great question also, because the truth is that, and I remember Eric and some combination of Eric and Bob inferring that, certainly for that first season, that every episode identity was a movie unto itself. So there was no particular repeating. I forget there was a theme that I wrote that came to be known by the fans as, the sort of the brothers family theme. That sort of became a fan favorite, which I loved.
But that was later?
And I did that. I forget if it might have been the last episode. When was Swan Song?
Swan Song's the end of season 5.
5.
Oh my God. So until the end of season 5, there were basically no repeats.
Right.
And honestly, that was almost the philosophy in the whole show. But inevitably, when you get lucky to have a run that long, you have to reinvent the wheel several times. And so it's inevitably different, if not the entire theme, little Polaroid color moments that I had used before became, let's say, the body of something with a new top layer written that would apply to the thing. And that's just survival in a television scoring world where you have a week to write a score,
Yeah.
The first few seasons, oh no, these were all movies.
Wow.
Obviously, that makes it exciting, but does it make it stressful? Because is it achievable,
It's certainly stressful. And one of the first things I learned in television scoring was making peace with not, like I came from a songwriting background. I mean, that's the whole first half of my career writing life was as a songwriter.
Yeah.
And, my general vibe on that was song wasn't finished till it was finished. There was no clock ticking on when a song was finished. It was finished when I dug it,
Right.
And so a little bit of maybe sometimes it's a bitter pill, but it's really just a reality. And it's when craft comes in is when you have a week to write a 25 or 30-minute score.
Wow.
You sort of pick your moments. Mm-hmm. And some of the other things have to be, I just have to get it done. That's not to say that you hope for the best quality in each one, but the truth is that some things, inevitably, you look back at them a week or a year or a decade later and go, oh man, if I'd only had another day for that.
Yeah.
And that's,
I'm sure.
That might even apply to songs too, right?
Yeah, to a certain extent. But it's I can't even imagine it's a tight window, really as a songwriter. You're going, all right, you can only do so much.
So much.
And you know what? Like all of us, you just develop the muscle. Mm-hmm. You just develop the muscle. And, with repetition, like anything, you hopefully get better at it.
Yeah. A lot of people who watch the show don't realize that since it was shot in Vancouver, the pre-production, that is the writing of the show, and the post-production is all done in L.A., and we shoot it in Vancouver. Yeah. So did you have any interaction with Jared and Jensen?
Phil asked me in season 3 or 4 or somewhere in there, maybe season 5, he asked me to come up. Phil Gruska invited me up. So, because I alternated with Chris, I was able to do that on a week where I wasn't writing. And so I went up and met those guys. And my first impression was, Jesus, they're tall.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you.
But just couldn't have been sweeter. Both great. Yeah. And then that was the main time. But I think one time at the screening for, season 10, the musical, a little quick hello. But I'm not so sure that they could pick me out of a crowd of 2 visually.
It's so funny because, you spent so much of your career looking at them as you're scoring, yeah?
Exactly. But, I'm happy to say that with, I think, Jensen's blessing, I got the call last week to work on Winchesters.
Oh, that's fantastic. You heard it here, folks.
We're breaking news, buddy.
Yeah, we're breaking news.
We're not disconnected, totally. That's awesome, dude. Congratulations. That's really
great.
Cool.
Listen, Robbie Thompson,
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's a Class A team. They got assembled there.
All-star team.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that, too. If you're like one of the young actors reading for John or Mary Winchester, man, you got to be nervous. It's a big gig.
Yeah.
The potential upside is enormous from an acting standpoint, career standpoint for the young folks who we cast in those roles.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a big deal.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's great, man. That's exciting.
Yeah, congratulations. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. I just, you'd think that after a long run like that, it's like, okay, I'm done with that. But man, anything to be in that environment, and I loved Robbie because we wrote a couple of tunes, a couple of actual songs. They were his first songs ever in his life. And so
that's amazing. So, Robbie Thompson, who we'll talk about later in the series.
We will.
But wrote some of the most beloved episodes of Supernatural.
Some great ones.
I would agree.
Do you remember any other big moments in Route 66? Big moments that you were going for?
Yeah, the only thing that in my little scan, when, and I don't remember any characters' names or anything, but when the mother when she goes into a fairly long speech.
Right, that sort of
about
story of what all happened.
And just really a little snippet of our racist history. That was an emotional thing to write. And I thought, it's such wall-to-wall dialogue that I chose to do it pretty much just with string writing, because then there's no jagged edge to that in terms of a percussive sound, piano or guitar. And, I just wanted it to be hymnal. And kind of like Amazing Grace-ish under it. And so that was I remember that. And then,
which is interesting because, Jay, in the story, the burning of the church is a big cornerstone of that story. So when you talk about hymnal and Amazing Grace and sort of that idea behind the song, that's right in line with the story. Is that part of what inspired you to go that direction in terms of that theme?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yet subtle. I mean, that's what I think is so magical about what you do, and sometimes underappreciated, is you're creating the vibe underneath, the emotion. You're telling us what we should be feeling almost, and yet it's subtle that you don't even know it's there sometimes.
Well, I think that's the kind of the definition of a film score, in theory, doing its job, which is that unless you're talking about a big broad theme where you can associate it with a character or anything that John Williams ever wrote, but unless you're associating with that, sort of the some of the finest scoring moments are when you might watch a scene or two and go, oh, was there music there? But I'm feeling all this stuff. And then, you're not necessarily aware that you've heard the score for 3 minutes because you've been taken somewhere in a subtext emotional place,
Yeah. Well, and I would say to anyone listening, go back and watch that monologue again that woman does and listen to the score underneath it, because I'm sure you didn't hear it the first time, and now go back and listen and you'll notice it doesn't exist without it. They used to do this thing at the Oscars where they would have you appreciate the score.
Right.
They would show you a scene from an Oscar-nominated movie without the score in it.
Right.
And you realize what a vacancy it leaves without it. So
I think one of the great oversights of this show is that it never released, along with its DVD collection, an annual soundtrack.
We did the season 5 sort of snapshot of the previous 5 seasons. Chris and I each picked, I don't know, a half a dozen, maybe 10 things that in some cases we edited an overture type of thing together of certain styles. And then we never got to do it again until the season 10 fan fiction episode. I agree with you. I think it would have been, a cool thing to do.
Well, because we're guys on the inside,
right?
I have a few of because Jay's, did me a solid, sent me a couple of the tracks, that are like from episodes I directed that I have on a playlist on my phone that I listen to all the time. Like it's gorgeous.
Are those
music.
the bootleg CDs you're selling outside Staples Center?
Ixnay on the bootleg bay. It's great though. The music is so gorgeous, and when I listen to it, I'm not listening to Supernatural score, I'm listening to beautiful score. It's just, your music is just next level. It's
beautiful,
just
high
stunning.
compliment. And, I can only return the gesture by saying that it's serving the images that I was presented with, so.
Well, it was a beautiful marriage, I think. And
It just goes to the theory that it's such a team sport. I mean, really it's like people who think that it's like, oh, it's all about the star or it's all about the writer or the director. Man, that is so far from the truth. It's about experts in every facet of the industry getting together and doing their collective best.
That is totally true. And that was in that first year and a half of the pandemic when basically there was, there were all these rules for sets. And then post-production was virtually nothing like what it was before in that, you didn't get together for a spotting session. You did it on Zoom. You didn't go to the dub / the final mix of an episode where they mixed, once again for our audience here, where they mixed dialogue, sound effects, music, everything sort of comes together.
Yeah.
And, those were fun things to socially and human contact connect with, as a composer, because as a composer, there's lots of alone time.
Yeah.
Trying to puzzle solve what melody, what harmony, what, counterpoint, what thing to do. And it's a lot of alone time. So one of the things to look forward to is either the spotting session, the dub, or the date with the musicians.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when that got taken away, it was you really realized how much, how important it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
How often did you use external musicians in your
used
stuff?
External musicians on every show, but the amount that I used varied a lot. Sometimes it would be 1 or 2 guest players. I would say the average was 3 to 4, and the idea was to have specialists. A specialist guitar player, a specialist woodwind player, a specialist violin or cellist. My daughter played percussion on a big batch of shows.
Oh, cool.
Huge amount of shows. I don't know, 10 or 20 episodes where she just either brought a drum kit in or congas or weird things. Her pocket is so good that,
That's awesome.
I just wanted her in here, even if she only played 2 bars,
Well, if people don't know, Jay's children are both accomplished musicians, producers. They were in a band called the Bell Brigade, who I was a huge fan.
I remember you telling me that, Rob. That's
and I see your son's working all the time. I see he worked with Phoebe Bridgers, among many other artists. So
he got a Grammy nomination for producing that record last year, and
that's amazing.
And has kind of taken off just producing. He's working with lots of new artists and a couple of established acts, and very very fortunate that way to have.
That's awesome.
Have kids, doing what they love and eking out a living doing it.
Yeah, man.
Just eking out the occasional Grammy nomination. It's nice to see them trying.
Well, they had a great mentor.
Yeah, man. It's just been so great having you on the show. It's not the last time, but it certainly is the first time. Thank you so much for being here, being a part of this.
Many thanks to you both.
Hey there, this is Jensen. I hope you're enjoying the episode, but we need to pull over for a second for some messages, and I got to take a leak. Thanks for supporting Supernatural then and now. And now, back to the show.
Well, that was great. What a great guy.
My gosh.
Love Jay.
The nicest guy in the world. And to reiterate, Rob and I know him well because he scored 10 episodes of Kings of Con.
Yeah.
Great friend and great musician.
Yeah. And just one of those gracious people that always is so respectful of other artists as well, which I always find is a really charming attribute. He's so decorated as a songwriter and composer, and yet he's so generous with his compliments of us that we don't necessarily deserve, but he's just a sweetheart.
Great man.
All right. So this episode, we said earlier, maybe it wasn't one of our favorites, but there's some interesting stuff in it. There's a lot of mythology going on.
There's a lot of heavy mythology going on.
Yeah.
The 1963 church fire that killed the children during choir practice may be a reference to the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, that killed 4 children during choir practice.
Which is horrible.
Yeah.
But again, props out to this episode for at least shining some light onto that.
It's a Eugenie Ross Lemming and Brad Buckner episode.
That's right.
Veteran writers, great people we know well, and people who will be interviewed on this podcast when they officially join the writing staff in a few years.
Right.
But this was their one-off early on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of intense symbolism.
Yeah.
And deep roots to the story.
Yeah. Another interesting mythology point. Dean makes a connection to the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman was an 18th century sea captain who once found himself struggling to round the Cape of Good Hope during a ferocious storm. He swore that he would succeed even if he had to sail until Judgment Day. The devil heard his oath and took him up on it. The Dutchman was condemned to stay at sea forever. In seafaring lore, the sighting of the phantom ship is an omen of doom.
I think it's interesting that Dean is so familiar with the Flying Dutchman, and you are fond of a Dutch oven.
Well, that's a stretch. So those of you listening along at home, a Dutch oven, of course, is when you pass gas underneath the sheets of the bed, and your unknowing bed partner gets a good whiff of it. That's a Dutch oven. Not to be confused with a Flying Dutchman. Completely different thing.
But if you give somebody a Dutch oven on an airplane, it is a Flying Dutch oven.
Actually, it's an omen of doom.
Certainly for the staff.
All right, fun facts. All right, Route 666 was a real road until 2003 when it was renamed Route 491.
Ooh, that's even scarier.
I didn't know that.
Me neither.
I know Route 66.
Maybe people didn't want to live on Satan's highway.
Yeah, I guess not.
Editor Anthony Pickers was expressly told by the studio not to depict Cassie on top for the sex scene. So Eric Kripke insisted on it.
It's such a Kripke move.
Take that, studio.
And why? Well, I don't understand why that would be a thing.
That was back before cable took over the world and people were still worried about piddly crap.
Advertisers and stuff.
Yeah, I guess.
The title of the episode, Route 666, pays reference to the TV show Route 66, one of the series that influenced Supernatural. Two guys on the road in a cool car helping people in trouble.
Or as it's typed here, in a cool care.
In Season 4, Episode 18, Route 666 is the title of one of Chuck's Supernatural books. Dean says to Chuck, everything's in here. I mean, everything. From the racist truck to me having sex. I'm full frontal in here, dude.
Great. Now this time, do it as Dean. Ladies and gentlemen, doing his Dean imitation, Rob Benedict.
Everything's in here. Sammy, everything's in here. I mean, everything. From the racist truck to me having sex. I mean, I'm full frontal in here, dude.
And scene.
That wasn't great.
That's pretty good.
You do a better Dean than me.
Nobody does. Check out Dean's odometer. Sam tells Dean to drive 0.7 miles. When Dean first looks, the odometer reads 70098.2. When he stops, it reads 70100.6. Does it really? A 2.4 mile difference.
I did notice that math didn't feel like it added up there.
Oh, man. Huh.
Yeah, we're just watching the numbers roll by, but yeah. All right, well, look, as I said, when I was watching the episode, I'm like, this isn't the best episode, but it's still fun to watch. It's always fun to watch.
They're all fun to watch. It's all great.
It's like watching superheroes, right? It's always fun to watch them do their thing.
It is indeed.
And I just want to thank Jay Gruska again for joining us. What a treat it was to talk to him.
It was so great. And you make a point, Rob, even maybe not our favorite Supernatural episode is still great television.
Yeah.
No small thanks to Jay Gruska for his beautiful score in this episode and so many other episodes.
Yeah. And I want to give a special shout out, because we haven't done this yet, to everyone listening to these episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate you and appreciate you're here, and hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah, man. We really appreciate all the support we're getting for the show.
So anyway, thanks again for joining us, and keep listening.
Don't forget to subscribe. You got to subscribe. We need you to subscribe. Did I mention you should subscribe?
You didn't.
Oh, please subscribe. This episode stars Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester and Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester.
The guest stars were Megalyn Ekekunwoke as Cassie Robinson, Kathleen Noon as Mrs. Robinson,
Gary Hetherington as Mayor Harold Todd.
Route 666 was written by Brad Buckner and Eugenie Ross Lemming.
Directed by Paul Shapiro.
Edited by Anthony Pinker. Music by Jay Gruska.
Jay Gruska.
Executive produced by Eric Kripke and Robert Singer.
The original broadcast featured some great music that I didn't get to hear from James Gang, Bad Company, and Blind Faith.
The episode first aired January 31st, 2006.
This episode of Supernatural Then and Now was hosted and executive produced by Richard Speight Jr. and Rob Benedict.
Produced by Stephen Hine.
Written by Stephen Hine and Haida Holscher.
And edited and associate produced by Trey Booty.
What's up, Booty?
Music provided by Tim Wynn.
This episode was recorded with the help of Sonic Fuel Studios and Fartoon Studios.
That's true. This podcast is from Story Mill Media.
For news on this and other podcasts, follow Story Mill Media on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay, we are recording. Can you hear a check from you, Rich?
Check.
In cool care. My Uncle Johnny's in cool care.
Speaking of Dean, check out Dean's odometer. You know what I'm saying?
Check out Gene's odometer.
Check out Gene. For Christ's sake. Yeah, exactly. What I'm texting you guys. I'm on set. Just thought you guys should know.
Still laughing. Route 666 was a... Oh, boy.
Oh, my God. That's good.
Story Mill Media.
When it comes to clothes, having pieces that you can wear anywhere is a must. That's why American Giant makes clothing that fits your life seamlessly, with quality you have to feel to believe. Whether you're stocking up for any weather or picking up a special gift, you'll find an impressive selection of staples to choose from. So whether you're on the hunt for a heavyweight hoodie, a fleece jacket, or a hardworking pair of warm sweatpants, American Giant has what you're looking for. Each American Giant piece is designed to last and created with commitment to doing things better. And all their products are made right here in America. Because keeping things local ensures the kind of quality you'll feel and appreciate for years to come. Discover the American Giant difference today. Shop Wear Anywhere closet staples at american-giant.com. And get 20% off your order when you use code ANYSTYLE24 at checkout. That's 20% off at american-giant.com. Promo code ANYSTYLE24.